In today's video, I duct tape a thing into a slot, struggle with the controller, and gasp at some squares being filled. Whoa! But first, pure power. Be quiet. Pure Power 13 power supplies. It comes with all the stuff I normally glaze Be Quiet power supplies over, like this 10-pin to dual 8-pin connector, which is much smarter, and its quiet operation and amazing build quality for the price, but now updated with some super modern features like Nvidia's power connector and a Cybernetics Gold rating. So get yourself some pure power using the link down below. Strix Halo, an APU for the gods promised to man by the Soon. However, eons since, there has been nothing but hushed whispers and some stupid tablet thing, which, why has that been the only form it's been available in? Until now. I should probably explain what I was just rambling about there. Basically, Strix Halo is one of AMD's new APUs that they announced earlier this year, or the end of last year, I think. And an APU is basically like a CPU and a graphics card chip that's been rolled into one package. Now normally, an APU is kind of like a gym bro that's never heard of leg day. It's put all of its steroids and effort into the CPU bit, and then the graphics card bit just hangs off the end of it like a heavily infected appendix. Which means playing modern AAA games on even the fastest recent APUs has been a massive compromise. Whereas Strix Halo supposedly has a GPU bit that can kinda keep up with actual proper dedicated graphics cards. Which is obviously really exciting. Being able to do proper gaming on an APU has long been a dream of mine, and we've gotten close up until now, but apparently this is a huge step up. Okay, now technically, the little Framework mini PC standing behind me isn't the first mini PC with one of these Strix Halo APUs in them. But they've been really difficult to find. I'm pretty sure, in fact, that these Strix Halo chips are hewn in Mount Olympus by Greek virgins because they're just so difficult to find. So when Framework announced their little system, I excitedly reached out to them and asked if they could bless a mere mortal with one of their systems, and they were nice enough to oblige. Which means today, not only am I having my first interaction with the APU equivalent of a Neo Guardian, but we also get a peek at Framework's new mini PC, a mini PC supposedly designed with upgradability and repairability in mind, which is quite an exciting combo. So with that, let's go have a first look. In here, we've got our little expansion cards modular I/O setup going. You can also choose whether or not you want to get it with some storage. You can also provide your own, which is a nice touch. And then this is a handle for the system, which would get Danny very excited. Look at that bad boy. So we get some little colored tiles to let us swag up our case a little bit. And a little DDTS tile. Ooh, you spoil me. Pull that panel out. Oh. Oh, and it's got a hint of that Apple neutral clean smell, which I guess means this is a premium device. It's good to know. Oh, stickers! And here is our little guy, which straight off the bat, there's some cool stuff going on here, but first we gotta peel it. So I guess you take this. Now on the top, we've got these little, and I want to say butt plugs, but I'm pretty sure that's not the correct thing to refer to them as, but I think this is where you attach the top handle. On the front, we've got space for all of the little colored tiles that they gave us. And on the back is the non-modular I/O, which is more complete than I was expecting, considering that we have the little changey-outy bits in the front. We've even got outputs for 3 displays. Very nice. And when it comes to the modular I/O, on the front we've got 2 of these USB-C orifices that you can plug whatever module you picked in. I was actually expecting more of the I/O to be based in this format, but I really like that they have all of these included because it means that you don't actually have to spend that much money on those little I/O accessory cards, which is good. Now the inside is where it gets very cool. The interior cavity is dominated by this bare heatsink that we're going to drop a fan onto later. And the power supply implementation is really good because it's got standard ATX power supply connectors. It's got a 24-pin and an 8-pin, so that in the future you can replace the power supply with anything you happen to have. We also get some PCIe expansion. It's just a 4X slot, and we don't actually have like a PCI slot on the back for any of its I/O to come out, but that is still really useful. If you drop this in a different chassis and you want to add a card in, you have that option with this system. Oh, that's cool. So this little tube over here is an intake for the power supply. There's also space for a tiny, like 80mm fan on the front as well if you want to do that. But because of how the cooler is integrated into the system, I think temperatures aren't going to be much of an issue once we drop this fan in. And then finally inside is our empty M.2 slot for us to drop our storage in with a little heatsink. Let's do that now. Interestingly, the M.2 drive uses Torx screws to mount. Luckily, they include a Torx screwdriver in the box. Ooh, there's a little fan connector glory hole on the top. That's real cool. Now when it comes to constructing a tile pattern on the front, I'm no Monet, so I don't think this is gonna go great, but I did have to resist every urge in my body to not just make a penis on the front. Is this what growing up is? But that adult feeling quickly evaporated when I spent like 15 minutes struggling to figure out how to get the side panel in place. I'm not exaggerating here, it took me ages to figure out how to get it back on. Even looking at the manual couldn't get the idea through my monkey head. It turns out you need to mount it before replacing the top panel. Now straight off the bat, I have left it overnight with the internet connected and it hasn't seemed to sort itself out. We still have some 800 by 600 windows going on here. It didn't auto-install drivers. Now this is the part where I actually get filtered by CAPTCHAs, because does it include the dude on the bike? Or is it just the motorcycle? And like that square, there's a little bit of the bike in, but does that count as part of it? Is that correct? Or is that correct? I don't know. Okay, it didn't want the guy on the bike in it. I hate that form of CAPTCHA, because if you get one wrong, it's then convinced you're a bot, and then you get sucked into CAPTCHA hell. The moment that there's one of those CAPTCHAs, that way you have to like click the tiles and it makes you find bicycles or whatever, I think it's maybe 1 in 2 times that I just get sucked into CAPTCHA hell there. And it causes this deep existential dread, because like, does that mean I'm an AI? I don't understand. How is Windows Update still in progress? It's been going for 15 hours. But even after it finished the update it was crying about, it still didn't update the drivers, but luckily this time it would let me install my own drivers. Now I have a suspicion, in fact, I'm 100% sure this is going to be the case, but I have a suspicion we're not going to be able to screen capture on the little iGPU because they don't have like H.264 encoders on or whatever. But maybe they've added it. That would be really... I already don't see the page. While setting the system up, it has been super snappy. It may be one of the most responsive Windows 11 experiences I've ever had. I think it has something to do with the soldered on huge amounts of super fast memory. I'm not sure, but I am very curious to see what kind of Cinebench result we get from this, because that CPU seems like a real beast, so let's give it a try. Oh, look at all them little cores! Whoa, look at that score! It's double a high-end first-gen Threadripper chip. That is insane. It's got the same core count. The single-threaded score was just as batty, R23 absolutely decimated by this chip. Oh, and if you're worried that the soldered down 8000 MHz RAM is going to be an issue when you want to upgrade it later down the line, this spec comes with 128 gigs of it. There is also a 64 gig version which is cheaper, but either way, because of all of this huge amount of memory, it means we can allocate a massive portion of that to the iGPU for our gaming. Oh wow, we are using all of the memory. But luckily, we still have like 90 gigs left, so I think we're fine. This is very interesting. This is 1440p low, and I mean, we're getting a lot of frame rate, but it's not actually running that well. And it's something I wasn't expecting considering what an absolute monster the CPU is. Actually, considering the fact that we're looking at an iGPU here, gaming at 1440p, we're getting 200 frames per second, and it's running very well. Like, when I say it's not running well, I mean just in regards to the utilization of the GPU. There's clearly more juice in the tank here. But yeah, I mean, for an iGPU, this is unprecedented performance. Interestingly, for later in the video, I installed Linux on this system to try and use it as a console, but I also tested CS2, because in the last video where I tested CS2 on Linux, it had much better utilization than in Windows, which was also the case with the little framework system, although we still weren't getting 100% utilization. And despite our average frame per second being higher, our 1% low was lower, which was the other way around in the last video. It's just kind of weird. But anyway, let's see what Cyberpunk does. Now I'm going to use the same settings to test this system as the PC that I had in the last video, which has an RX 9060 XT in it. So we're comparing it to something very fast and like a proper dedicated graphics card. There's no way it's going to compare favorably to it, but let's see what happens.
A few moments later.
At 1440p ultra settings, in Cyberpunk we're getting in the 50s. This is an iGPU. This is an APU. There's like a thing in it. This is kind of mind-blowing because the RX 9060 XT was not performing that much better than this. I think it was getting an average of about 70 frames per second. Now don't get me wrong, 74 is a lot better than 53, but we're looking at a tiny little system with an iGPU in it. Now when it comes to how the actual gameplay feels, I wouldn't want to play it like this. I mean, you can tell by our frame time graph that there is some definite, there's weirdness going on there. The game doesn't feel fantastic, but yeah, it still is just super impressive that this is 1440p Ultra. I then dropped the settings to 1440p High with Quality Fidelity FX. Oh, there we go. So that is immediately a lot more playable. And efficiency is another thing. While gaming, we're getting a CPU package power draw of 100 watts, which is insane for this kind of performance, and it leads to a system that runs cool, quiet, and doesn't dump a bunch of heat into the room. Now with Doom: The Dark Ages, this is running at 1440p high settings with FSR native AA, so we're not using any upscaling here. And again, this is an iGPU, and we're getting in the mid-ish 30 frames per second. Now the game doesn't feel great, but this is a wildly impressive result. Although, look at that stuttering. That's weird. There's big ones of those. They went away right after that and then didn't come back. I would definitely not want to play the game like this, especially Doom: The Dark Ages, but I mean, this is like, it's working. With Doom, it did fall quite a bit behind the RX 9060 XT system, but when I dropped the settings down to medium with Quality Fidelity FX, suddenly the game felt great. With Stalker 2, the 9060 is also running way better than the little iGPU-based system, but they are kind of in the same universe, which is wild. And with some upscaling, Stalker 2 became playable at 1440p, again on an iGPU. But with that, considering that we do have a monstrous CPU section in this little system, before we install some Linux on it, I do want to see what the most power is we can get out of it. So I think it's time to finally drop an external graphics card on this bad boy. Yes. Now, unfortunately, our mini PC does not come with an Oculink port as standard, which I personally think is a pretty big missed opportunity. Now, it does have that 4x PCIe slot on the motherboard, but I don't have an adapter to use that to hook up a graphics card. Luckily, there is an additional M.2 slot on the back of the motherboard, and an M.2 slot can have up to 4 PCIe lanes, so it's basically the same thing. Ooh, this back panel's very plasticky. I kind of wish that A, it was metal, and B, it had a glory hole for the M.2 slot on it. That would have been awesome if you could just easily hot swap that bad boy. Now, what is really awesome about this hinge mechanism is you can remove the entire heatsink, which makes a lot of sense. That's interesting. The front screw is captive, but the rear one isn't. Oh, and it's gone forever. Oh, we don't have shorter standoffs. That's a shame. Don't worry, I've got an age-old technique. This was actually used by the Shaolin monks in 1300 BC. That's probably not when they existed, but that's fine. Now, unfortunately, considering that this is at an angle, our age-old Shaolin technique is actually not working that well. So what I may do instead, but I think we have enough structural rigidity there that it's gonna keep in place. So I think we're good. And just like that, we're playing Cyberpunk at 1440p ultra ray traced with our 4090 in the little system, and it's running well. There's lots of graphics happening. You can tell that the GPU isn't fully utilized, but it's there. You know, it occasionally reaches like 95%, and just ray tracing up the butt, it looks almost exactly the same as before, but you know, we know that ray tracing is on. And when you use the same settings I tested the iGPU with, you can see that it's running a little bit better. Out of curiosity, I also tested CS2, which weirdly also performed quite a bit better. That doesn't make sense to me because we were getting so little utilization on the iGPU, so I feel like the 4090 shouldn't be performing that much better. But there's clearly some other bottleneck. And then the final thing I wanted to do was install some Linux on the mini PC and then use it as a console. Because I was still intrigued by the feature that Bazzite has where you can just boot straight into big screen Steam mode, which basically turns your device into like a Steam Deck thing. And when making an ISO on Bazzite's website, there's a specific option for framework computers, which further heightened my intrigue. However, I had a weirdly tough time installing Bazzite on the little framework system. But obviously it was user error, he says, sweating in CSV file. I just had to enroll some mock and then Bazzite launched with no problem. Now, I did initially install Bazzite in the the Steam Deck mode, but it was really annoying because a lot of the features that you want to play around with is in the desktop mode, and I couldn't immediately figure out how to get to it, so I just rage quit on it and then decided to do the desktop version instead.
20 minutes later.
Okay, so Spiritfarer does not want an overlay happening, but it's a very basic game, so it's probably going to be running at 120 frames per second the whole time anyway, so I think we're good. Now my control isn't, oh my god, so much compatibility issues, options. I then tried to bind the Xbox controller buttons, but for some reason, Spiritfarer was having none of it, so I had to play it with a keyboard like some kind of animal. Well, I'm trying to illustrate this as a thing that works seamlessly for like console application like this. And it's going very well, basically. But here is my boat. Well, it's so weird not hearing the game. I thought I turned some volume up. Where is the remote? Here. That is, it's insanely low volume. What is... Oh, there we go. There we go. Seamless. This is working seamlessly is what's happening here. At which point, I didn't even really feel like playing this super relaxing game anymore. To be fair, what I'm doing here, you can very much do in Windows, right? It's not like you can't just use big screen mode in Windows. But I mean, we're trying to be open-minded here to some Linux. and it's going really well. So with that, let's try a different game. Hey, the controller works straight off the bat. Okay, so we want to see here. Wow. Not wanting to game like a massive loser, I turned it up to 4K and hoped that dynamic FSR could figure out how to get us to 60. Oh, there's a truck. Oh my god, there's gonna be truck sex. Okay, I need to pause. Okay, so here we're running Horizon Ginger Dawn or whatever at 4K low settings with balanced FSR. I've turned off motion blur, and I mean, honestly, it looks okay. Turning off the motion blur made a huge difference. I was just running it with it on and it looked horrendous. But here, I would say that it's definitely usable. Like this is a usable experience, but you are better off buying a PlayStation 5. It's less than half the price, I think, and the game is gonna run better than it's running here. And that also uses an iGPU, so we can't even use that form of copium here. But it is impressive, you know, the game is definitely usable. Having said that, I don't think that this is a recommended use case for this little mini PC. But it's pretty cool that it can kind of get away with it here, and we don't have to shackle it down too hard. I mean, we're just using balanced FSR. On the note of recommended use cases for the little system, go check out Jeff Geerling's video on the framework system. Because he actually knows how to do computer stuff, he turned it into like an AI mini cluster thing, which is really cool. That's a use case that makes way more sense for this little thing than what I've been doing with it. But with that, thank you very much for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to the channel. There's just like a red button down there. Click it, and then it makes me feel better about my life. And yeah, until the next video, thank you for watching. Bye-bye.